One of the more interesting armies in Warhammer are the Space Wolves. Their armor usually consists of a lot of fur and a lot of interesting bits and pieces. In today's video we look to explore how to paint a simple blood claw. For this video I took the Grey Hunters box and built a single blood claw using the items on the sprue. After magically putting the blood claw together, I decided to leave the backpack off and spray the entire model using Chaos Black. Once I had sprayed Chaos Black all over, I then went and used a little bit of white scar and used my dry brushing makeup brush, which I've used in the past, to just do a white zenithal layer all over the model from the top to the bottom and in between some of the spaces, particularly where you want light to be hitting the model. With the white scar paint now dry, we can use the contrast Space Wolf's grey paint to paint on the armor area of the Space Wolf. This is very much like the slap chop technique we used in my Ultramarines video a few videos back, but we'll be using this paint more in a classical painting method, so we'll be trying to put it on relatively thick so that we can get quite a lot of dark grey areas. We're trying to achieve quite a dark, grim darky type effect on this particular model. So go over all the armor plating areas where there would normally be a blue grey for the Space Wolves and get that paint all over. Once it's dried, give it another layer if you have to. Other than fur on Space Wolves, the next most distinguishable colour on a Space Wolf is Avalan Sunset. This is usually painted on the pauldrons or the shoulders of the Space Wolves, usually around the black wolf marking that's normally on the left pauldron, and you have a combination of red, blacks, whites on the right pauldron depending on the different unit that the Space Wolf is part of. In this particular case, a blood claw will have a combination of yellow and red on the left pauldron. Before going too much further, it's worth getting some Abaddon black and just filling in some of the black areas of the model that you might have painted over, or where some of the contrast paint might have gotten. So behind the knees, or between any parts of the model where it should be black, between the upper arm and the lower part of the arm, near the elbow is a good area to normally paint black. And things like the gun, just touch the gun up in black in certain areas. Later on we'll use a bit of lead belcher paint just to give a bit of a metallic colour again. Another popular colour on Space Wolves is Rhinox hide. We're going to use this for a lot of the furs as the base paint, and we're also going to use it as the base paint for all of the backpacks and the belts and any leather pieces that might be around the Space Wolf, particularly around the wrist and the waist. Another common theme you'll find with Space Wolves are bone and skulls, and we can use a bit of Morghast bone or Wraith bone base paint just to paint all of the bone and skull areas. There's usually bones around the neck, the chest, and hanging off things like the guns or the weapons like the Astartes chain sword, or around the pauldrons. So wherever you see teeth and bone, just give a base coat of Morghast bone or Wraith bone. To normally attach the bones to the neck pieces or the weapons, there's usually a silver ring. For that we're going to use some lead belcher paint and just do a base coat on anywhere where we potentially would see some silver or some metallic that we want to use or to hold ornaments or skulls or bones to belts or neck pieces, etc. We'll also be using the lead belcher on the sword and on the weapon if you haven't already painted them. One of the quick techniques you can do is to use a dry brush, get some of the lead belcher on it, and just gently brush all over the weapon and the gun just to see if you can get a nice covering of silver. It'll give you a bit of a polished metallic look to the weapon. Quite a nice, quick and easy way of painting weapons. Space Wolves do use a little bit of gold on their armor trimmings. Now traditionally you wouldn't see the gold on the pauldrons, but I feel like painting it on this particular model. Normally they left the same blue armor as well, whatever the Space Wolf armor has been painted with, but I felt like painting the trimmings of these gold and painting the trimmings around the legs in the area. It just makes the model stand out a little bit and give a bit of something interesting for the model. Next thing that we should try and paint is the face and the head area of the model. As only the face is being shown on this model with the hair on top, we're going to use Bugman's Glow to just get a base coat around all of the areas. It's important to water this paint down quite a bit as it can be quite thick. At this stage you would have noticed some areas on the model where you might have missed some paint, like on the fur or around the leather pieces on the belt. So use your Rhinox hide and your Abaddon blacks and all of your various base coats just to touch up the model where you might have seen some areas that you possibly have missed. Space Wolves is my own personal army, and I've been painting them for a number of years, and I really do enjoy painting them. I think they do give quite a lot of character and interest to painting them, especially for someone like me who enjoys painting. I hope you're enjoying this video so far. If you have, hit that like and subscribe. It really helps me get my content across to more viewers. There is a little bit of red on the Space Wolves that we need to paint, and we use a little bit of Mephiston red for that. And it's really around the purity seal that's on the left or the right leg of the Space Wolf. So we just really want to touch up around the wax area that would hold the piece of paper to the leg of the Space Wolf. By now the Morghast or the Wraithbone base paint would have dried on the skulls and around the teeth areas and the teeth around the ornaments of this Space Wolf. Just go around and add another base coat. Also make sure that you paint the purity seal paper where we just painted with Mephiston red. So just do a little bit of touch-ups and paint that seal. The next bit of painting, which will be a first bit of freehand painting on our model, is the shoulder markings on the right hand side of the model. For this we need to paint 3 triangles of red, one that's facing down and 2 that's facing up. I will run a separate video that explains how to create these perfect patterns. Don't worry if you go out of the lines or smudge the red around a little bit. You can use a bit of Avalon Sunset just to touch up the yellows where need be. You can also go around the pauldrons and touch up yellow that might have faded or not quite come through properly with one coat. Something that I tried for the first time on this model was trying to paint some writing on the moment of oath or the parchment on the leg of the Space Marine. I found this quite difficult as the paint dries quite quickly, but it's worth trying. Now for a little bit of shading on some of the fur and brown areas. We use a bit of Agrax Earth Shade, and we just shade lightly around where we've got fur or any of the brown on the backpacks or the belt area or the leather on the wrists. Now for the rest of the model, just wherever you see paint has started to dry or you see some of the shading has gone a little bit too dark, you use some of the original base tones or some of the layer paints to just create a little bit of interest in different areas on the model. So areas where you want to bring out a bit more color, so adding a bit more lead belcher on the gun or a bit of lead belcher on some of the areas where you've got metal holding ornaments on a neck piece or teeth or skulls or whatever. You just tap it up. And the same goes with the red, so make sure that you're touching up some of the red on the shoulders and touching up some red on the purity seal and any particular areas that might just need a little bit of brightening up or a little bit of edge highlighting. You can just go and touch and just create a little bit more interest. At this particular point you can pretty much think the model is done, but you can add a few more layer paints if you have them. If you don't, you can always mix your various reds with whites or a little bit of browns or blacks to create a darker tone. In this particular case I've used corn red just to add a little bit of color to the lips, and then I just shade up the model a little bit more with some Reichland flesh shade for the face. But you can continue to add various colors or layers depending on when you feel like you've had enough or you think there's enough color in it. You can stop at any point. It's the amount of effort you put in really determines how much color or how much interest your model brings out. But if you're just looking to paint something ready for the table to play, you can pretty much stop once you've got the base layers and a bit of edge highlighting or a bit of highlighting done. I like to add a fair bit more layers, things like Runefang steel on the steel items and metal items and various colors of oranges and reds just to bring a bit more interest up. But like I say, it's your own preference on how much you want to do or not do. The last thing that you'll need to do is just glue the backpack back on if you've painted them separate like I have. If you paint it all together then it really doesn't matter, but for me I just find it easier to get to all the details of the model if it's all separate. Overall I found this model is quite straightforward to get to this level. It's just a matter of playing with layer paints to get you to a nice level. But if you really want to take your models to the next step by adding a little more grimdark techniques and a little bit more grime and blood and splatter and moss and mud all over the models, then come and have a look at one of my next videos I'm going to do, where I'm going to talk about how I took this particular Space Wolf model or another model which I'll probably use in a video to show you how to take your model's detail to that next level. So with the images, yeah, you can see I've added blood and gore to the weapon and the blood splatter on the chest, and there's moss and mud all over the legs. So please come and have a look at the next videos where I do this and see if there's something that you might enjoy doing in any of your future model painting.